morning and welcome everybody. We are, as you said, the Cambridge Marketing College. The college was actually founded in 1991, so that's 33 years ago. And that means we predate Wikipedia, Facebook, Google, what happened to them, and the Apple iPhone, probably arguably one of the biggest changes for marketers when it was launched. So it's fair to say we've seen quite a few changes and quite a few challenges. And the biggest challenge we see as marketers, and the reason you're all here, is working out what's new, what's just going to be hype, and what's actually going to be relevant to your industry and your customers. So, for example, I can remember back a otherwise very enlightened line manager in the early 1990s saying, I think about 1995, saying, oh, this internet stuff, we've seen it all before with CFAX. And for those of you too young to remember CFAX, Google it. I also remember over the years being told that Second Life was going to be the new big thing, and we all had to be in Second Life, and we all had to have our avatars, and we had to buy real estate in this great online world, and newspapers planted journalists there. Second Life does still exist, but it's fair to say it was hype. I've also seen similar things around blockchain. Not that long ago, 8 years, 9 years ago, blockchain was going to be the big new thing. It was the data game changer. It was going to be the one data ring to rule them all. Again, blockchain still exists, and it's relevant to some very specialized industries. So we are at the similar stage with AI. Is it hype? Is it new? How is it going to change us? And it's also worth thinking that when we get excited, as I remember getting excited about blockchain, what may happen with it may not be what we're expecting. The one thing I can say is throughout all the years I've worked at the Cambridge Marketing College, and Neil and I have worked out that we actually started there just last century, 1999, we both started together. Neil has been one of my guides and gurus in this area. I remember sitting in London, Neil, next to you as you explained the Twitter Periscope no longer exists. And also you explained to me that the metaverse was not just what Mark Zuckerberg was claiming, but there were metaverses. So I know we are in good and safe hands with Neil explaining to us where AI could take us and all the excitement around it. So Neil, can I start off by asking you some questions about AI just to get us going?
Indeed, yeah.
So you said we all think that AI is going to have a massive impact on the marketing profession. And as I said, it's still at that, is it going to change things? Isn't it going to change it? Well, what sort of are the best tools and what should we be looking to focus on at the moment?
Oh, good question. Well, in terms of the best tools, I'll come on to that just in a moment, in a broad brush kind of sense. But I think what should we as marketers and communicators focus on? That's the kind of, I guess, the key question, because AI right now is not just ChatGPT. I think that for me is the big thing. Everybody's talking about it. All the hype is there. Everybody's going in and having a little play, asking, what kind of recipes should I create from my fridge with the food that's actually in it? And ChatGPT can do a very, very good job of that. But from a business and a marketing perspective, this is a game changer. I mean, absolutely. It probably doesn't need me to tell everybody that it is a game changer. We're looking at a fundamental shift in marketing and business and commerce. And I think anybody who thinks this is hype and is going to go away will kind of listen to these words in the future and think, oh, they did have it right. I'm more excited about this AI thing than I've been about anything in my career. I mean, both you and I, obviously, Kiran, have seen a number of different cycles and waves of different types of marketing, and obviously the advent of the internet and of social media, which was called Web 2. We're kind of in Web 3 now, or we're seeing that emerge, if you want to call it that. It is a whole fundamental shift in the way that we will do marketing. So AI is most definitely not just ChatGPT. It's not just about content creation. We're going to see AI playing out in planning. We're going to look into research, data analysis, which I know we're going to touch on a little bit later, because the whole kind of evidence-based data and evaluation thing is huge, huge potential impact today. We're not talking future with that one. I think AI is also going to play out in customer service, even in sales, which is a really interesting one for me, because, does sales need to be human? I mean, there's a question, fundamental question. AI can play out in sales as well. Running campaigns and creating creative, all the things that we do as marketers strategically and tactically, all of these things are changing right now. For me, the big one, though, and it's a big word, and I'm sure we'll come on to it in the conversation, is automation. How can we be more efficient with AI? And I've got a few little examples I'd like to share, if that's all right, later, in terms of, how we can automate and just become a bit more efficient, not be doing the things that take up our time, but actually do the things that provide real value and work to our skills and our preferences. So I'm really excited by this. But in terms of tools, it is more than just ChatGPT.
Yes, I think there's a huge risk that we see anything to do with AI as ChatGPT, because that's what we hear about all the time. And then the media gets hold of that and starts talking about Skynet and other exciting things. There is not enough computing power on the planet to create Skynet yet. So how do we know that we're focusing in the right place? I think this is one of the things that I have. There's so many options for AI. Where do we even sort of know to focus?
Well, I think for me, one of the key things here is that if we kind of take the, ChatGPT, which I think a lot of people are thinking really is content, and it's great. I mean, let's face it, it can do things in a nanosecond that would take me, an hour to create. So there's a real efficiency there, and there's some really interesting ideas. If you ever get writer's block and you're creating, content for socials or for a blog, or, for your latest kind of management report or whatever it is, then it can really stimulate that first draft. And if you're anything like me, where I'm not really an originator of, original thinking, but I'm a great alchemist, I can put things together and make them sound really good, but I don't come up with original ideas. It's not my skill. Then things like this can really, really help you. So I think what's happening here is that we're seeing kind of content and GPT and things like that is really the tip of the iceberg. I often kind of see it in my mind's eye like that. And I think what we're going to need to do to really sort of embrace this, really as first steps, I guess, is to rethink what we mean by the word marketing. I think this is going to be our first kind of stepping stone in this game. You might have dabbled in a few other little AIs and, sort of started to investigate and be watching some of the tech media, the tech press, to kind of see what's coming. But I think it kind of starts with us. I really do. I think, we've got lost, and I will say this, I'm almost embarrassed at times to be a marketer. I've said this kind of publicly, because I think we've kind of become a little bit sort of slaves to our own success. I mean, we've used social media for many decades now, and yet it's not social. We use it as a promotional channel. So I'm kind of looking back inwards here and thinking, hold on, we got this wrong. And I think this moment with AI gives us a chance to kind of really rethink what we mean by the word marketing. Let's kind of do, sort of wholesome, proper marketing. Let's not just encourage consumption. Let's work with AI to understand how we can redefine what it is that we do and the value that we bring, so we can bring more effective and innovative, value-driven products to market faster. We can use it to engage more effectively with people, so all our stakeholders, from customer to internal staff. Obviously, as we know already, because we started talking about it, we can become super efficient, so we can look at our systems and processes. And then we can start to, hopefully in the not too distant future, start to see some great return on investment. So actually look at how more profitable we are as a result of using these technologies, because they're very, very low hanging fruit. You can use these things for free. Even the premium versions are very, very cheap. So I think this is kind of how I see it sort of evolving over the coming months. And it's so, for me, so exciting and lovely to hear. I don't have to say over the coming years, because this is happening in real time, right here, right now. And that, for me, is why it's so exciting. You can jump on or you can ignore it. But if you ignore it, good luck.
I think, as I said at the beginning, one of the exciting things about being in marketing is you always have to look for the new. Whether you where you think it's going to go is another matter, but you always have to understand and look for the new and the exciting. I do want to discuss the content creation side with you, because we do see, I'm sure everybody else is getting inboxes clogged with obviously AI generated emails. And the first time you get one, you think, oh, that's clever. And then after that, you think, oh, actually, I've seen this before with 3 other companies. So is marketing still making a mistake of just going, oh, AI content creation?
Yes, 100%. It is, and I really genuinely think it's the tip of the iceberg. You know, every time I see the words moreover or hitherto, I mean, come on, who actually writes like that? Who wants that in their text and in their content, their blogs and stuff? You can spot it a mile off. Obviously, we're a marketing college, so we teach and we have people sending in reports and assignments and things like that. You can spot this stuff a mile off. I think certainly those who are a little bit more savvy realize that the AIs are there really as, and somebody described this to me, I don't know where the original kind of quote came from, but it's like having an over-caffeinated intern by your side. And I love that. Somebody who's kind of really, really enthusiastic. They've got a really waggy tail, but they know absolutely nothing. And I think for me, that's what AI content creation is like. It has, you know, the world is its oyster. It can really tap into a whole bunch of things, but it really has no clue really what it's asking for and what you're actually looking to do. So it's all about being really quite, I guess, sort of careful and sort of creative with how you think about it, and using it for an early draft, using it as a starting point, using it as your entry into the article or the report or the blog or the social posts that you're doing, but never taking it, as you wouldn't from an over-caffeinated intern, never. You want to edit that thing, you want to check it. And of course, there are now AI tools that are editors and that are checking your grammar. So we're going to get the AIs actually doing that role too in the not too distant future as part of our process, which again, I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while, is how you build process around this stuff. But yeah, for me, I think we just need to kind of currently put it in its box and treat it for what it is, but it's still exciting.
Undoubtedly, there's a lovely article in the Guardian newspaper, I think, yesterday, talking about the use of the word delve in anything generated by AI. AIs are always delving into things, which I think is great fun. I want to come slightly onto the metaverse, if I may. And I know, because you taught me there are many metaverses. Is that just another hype, or is that something else that we can use?
So I love the fact that you've picked up on that metaverses thing. It is so important to remember that. You know, there are many choices here. You know, Mark Zuckerberg will tell you that Meta is the metaverse. It's not. Okay, there are many metaverses in our training day that we do, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We use a specific one that isn't Meta, as in Mr. Zuckerberg's entity, and so there are many versions of this. And of course, as you said right at the start of this conversation, you know, we've had Second Life for a number of decades now, so it's not new. For me, the thing that means this really now is no longer hype is because, going back to that thing about we need to redefine marketing, we have a real opportunity here, and no matter what industry you work, whatever kind of role that you have, whether it's strategic or tactical, we have an opportunity here to break free from the noise that we've created over the last couple of decades with social media. So what our customers are looking for is personalization. They're looking for a much more immersive customer experience, and I guess what you could call true engagement. We haven't, if we're being brutally honest here, very few of us have actually been delivering that. We've tried, maybe we've dabbled, maybe we've kidded ourselves that we're actually doing that, but we're not really. The experiences are not immersive. There's gaps in them. We're not truly engaging. So I see metaverse, or you could call it virtual reality. In fact, I now call it the new reality, because it's not actually virtual. Once you get into this space, it is actually quite real. So I call it the new reality, and I'm seeing this potentially as a blended thing. So if you can imagine a virtual space or a new reality space blended with existing customer journeys and customer experiences that you already do and choreograph for your customers, then I see this as being a real differentiator. And I think, you know, things like the metaverse or metaverses can fill in those gaps where you might have a customer journey, but it's got a bottleneck and you don't see people clicking through to the next point because you're not really given them what they want, or, there's just a breakdown in the process and they don't really understand what it is that you're doing, or you're just kind of falling short in their minds in terms of the perception they have of what you do. That's where I see now the metaverse with its technologies, with augmented reality coming in and being that bridge. So as we go into a shop and we scan our phone against an item of clothing, we can get the carbon footprint of that piece of clothing. We can understand the supply chain, where it was sourced, the designer, for example, and all of that's in the palm of our hand. To me, that's the next step. And that's the thing that's been missing here. We've had this thing that's, it's like a virtual game. Oh, I wouldn't do marketing in there. My customers are B2B. They're really serious. We can't possibly do that. It's a bit like a cartoon. We're breaking those barriers down now. It's much more accessible. It is more serious. You can make it a very serious space. And so I think the timing is now right. It's almost, for me, it's almost like that perfect storm moment. We haven't had it. And I think Second Life, bless it, still around, still relatively successful in its own right, but it never had this kind of perfect storm scenario, which we're getting now, which is personalization, customization, immersive experience demanded by our customers. And metaverse can be a partial solution to that, I feel.
So my other question is going to be around fitting it into the day job. Marketing people are incredibly busy. I don't need to tell anyone that on the call. I've got a day job to do. I've got other responsibilities to meet, and I keep being told to go and play in the metaverse or in AI. And actually, much as I would love to play, I don't really have the time to do it. So how do you recommend for marketers that we find the time to look at these things?
It's great question. And I think this is the reality that most of us face, including me. I've got to find time and space to kind of keep up to date with all this stuff, because literally every time we put the course on, we have to change it because things have adapted and evolved and we've got new things to talk about. Again, it's exciting, but it does mean there's a little bit of late night stuff that goes on in terms of the research. I mean, I'm a huge believer in the Pareto principle, 80-20 rule. Everything to me, and it was a genius thing. I wish I was old enough and clever enough to come up with this, way back. But Pareto came up with this 80-20 rule that everything is split into that. You get 80% of the value from 20% of the things that you do. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your customers. No matter where you look, it's broken down like that. So I guess for me personally, and this is something that people can choose to play with, but it's a fun thing to play with, is if you could break your day down into an 80-20 split. 80% of the day is the full stuff, the things that deliver the value, the things that you're being tasked with doing, those objectives and those goals and all the busy stuff that you talked about. And 20% is that exploration. If you ignore this stuff, you will sink. There, I said it in public. You've got to do this. There is no choice. This thing is here. It's not like it's an emerging thing that may or may not go away. This thing is here. So you have no choice. So you've got to figure out how to do this. But at the same time, this is still early in the game. The fact you're listening to this conversation here, the fact that you may well have dabbled yourself and you may well have already started playing, I would say don't panic. If you can find 20% of the time that you have in the day to innovate, to build value, the comeback and the return on that investment of your time, so the ROI of your time, is going to come back in leaps and bounds. I guarantee it. There's some really great examples already emerging out there of businesses who are finding the automation part of AI is saving them so much time. So you'll become less busy if you can find that 20%. And then I would also say, can you afford not to? Because your competitors are doing this. They're starting to look at this. So you'll sink if you don't, but don't panic. So it's a kind of a balance to strike, really. It's a tricky one, but you've got to do it.
Okay, so last question for me for now, but can you give me some top tips for marketers to what we should focus on in the AI and the metaverse?
I suppose there's kind of two areas that I would say are really, really important. And I kind of sort of hinted at these, a little bit of a spoiler alert earlier on. The first one is process. Okay, we kind of got to get serious and a little bit more scientific in some of our marketing, and that's why I'm saying I think we've all got a little bit distracted by the whole social media kind of thing, and it's all about content. Because for me, the first thing to really do is to start mapping out. Sounds a bit dry, but it is so powerful. Start to map out your marketing processes and customer journeys. Okay, so if you understand your marketing processes, the way that you do what you do as a marketer, tactically and strategically, every level is the same here. If you map out your marketing processes, you then get a little opportunity to understand where you might want to infill with some kind of AI. So we have AI agents who can take over some of the low-hanging fruit, the stuff where you don't really add value, and the AI agents can do that now. And I'll share a little bit with everybody a little bit later on that. But if you don't understand what your processes are, how do you know where to begin? Because there's 1,001, probably 10,001 different AIs. So until you know your processes, and this also applies to the customer journey, if you haven't yet mapped out your customer journey, that step-by-step engagement process you take your customers through, you have no chance of, sort of seeing through the fog of all these different AIs. But as soon as you do that, you've got clarity, because you can spot where you've got gaps. You can spot where you've got little areas where you just intuitively know you could improve something. And then you can then start to think, okay, is there an AI that could fill that space? Is there an AI that could help us be more efficient there in that little single point in the process? So by doing process mapping and building out your customer journeys, you get a chance then to filter out all this noise. And of course, if you've only got 20% of your time, you're going to need to do that because you've got to be really effective. And the second tip, I guess I could give, and this one's a really important one, and I'm trying to sort of spread this word sort of loud and very, very wide, sort of to pretty much everybody I talk to, is that it's all about knowing that your new job title now includes the words prompt engineer. Okay. Now we've seen this in media. We've seen this, a lot of people are talking about this in social media. You see it all over LinkedIn. I'm sure everybody's kind of following their LinkedIn timeline and stuff. So you'll know this phrase, prompt engineering. Which is all about talking to and chatting with the AIs. So you're engineering the prompts. You don't just put in like a little search and say, oh, go give me the answer. You get into conversation with the AI. And this is what we call prompt engineering. You're engineering the prompts to get a more effective outcome. And all of us, from CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, all the way through to the most junior intern in marketing, on their very first day, they have this title now as part of their job title. And so what I would say is it is time right here, right now, to just remember that, know that, and start to upskill yourself. Because again, if you don't, you become less relevant and less valuable, both to the organization, but also in your career development. Again, this stuff is not going away, and it's a really key skill. And there are lots of different little techniques you can do and lots of emerging stuff in this new AI playbook that can help you. And of course, as part of the course that we run, we go deep into that prompt engineering piece. But those would be the two things: map out your processes and customer journey, and know that your job now includes prompt engineering.
Thank you. That was the last of my questions for now, Neil, and I think you've got some showcasing.
I've got a few little things I'd like to share with people. And again, this is, we're going to go through a few little things which kind of build on some of those answers that I've given, actually. So thank you, Karen, for those questions, because they do lead actually pretty seamlessly into the next bit. I'm just going to do a little screen share just to give you a sense sort of on here of the some of the things that we've been talking about here. Hopefully you'll all be able to see this as it comes through here. I talked a little bit about the idea, and of course, please enter into the chat any questions that you have for us both, if there's anything that kind of crops up here. I've been talking about this whole thing about sort of, I guess we could call them AI agents. Using AI as kind of little assistants. I use this kind of over-caffeinated intern as a little bit of a simple example of, what these AIs typically are. But we're starting to see organizations, and here's one that I've been researching. I'm actually on the beta trial for this particular organization, and it's absolutely fascinating. I just wanted to give you a little snapshot behind the scenes. Can you imagine in the coming months, notice I said months, not years, in the coming months, being able to, as you turn up for work on a Monday morning, sit down with your AI agents, your little team of agents here, and you say to them, each one, because each one is performing a different role to you. Can you summarize last week's performance, please? I want to know what sales were like. I want to know how the website was performing. And then your avatar, your little AI agent here, talks back to you in real time with the latest data that they've measured, analyzed, and evaluated. So this is something that is kind of almost like a little plug-in to your process and system. And this is why I'm saying it's so important to remember that you've got to know your processes, because to be able to build these things out, you have to be able to obviously prompt engineer them. So you're creating these, you're creating a rule for them, you're creating descriptions for them, and each one can have its own function. Each one can have its own rules. So you might have, AI agent number 2 is the one that is watching your LinkedIn profile for any inbound messages, and basically filtering those messages, looking at your timeline, actually they're in LinkedIn, and kind of saying, hey, I'm spotting a trend here, Neil. There's some things that you need to pay attention to. Do you want to log in? Because you've got a couple of messages from these 2 people, and they would be actually really, really good to be following up with, because, the next course you're going to do, they'll be they're potentially good speakers, or they're running some good little case studies, and I've found some good stuff for you to talk to. So that could be AI agent number 2. And so the list goes on. And this is why I'm saying it's so important to be thinking of your processes and your systems, both internal, but also customer or real world facing, because these AI agents you can program pretty seamlessly to be doing these kinds of functions. And they will be doing it flawlessly, because you've programmed them so they're working within boundaries. They can be doing it 24/7. I'm not saying these are taking away from the staff that you might have or the colleagues that you have, but they could be performing very specific, very specialist, very time-intensive functions that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do at the kind of scale that you might wish to do. So for me, that's a really important one. Now, I just wanted to give you a little view of kind of how you do this. Just let me just slightly resize this screen just a second so you can see it all in total. So because I've got onto the beta of this one, I've got a view of the back end of how you actually build these. And this is just, if I click on this news researcher one, this will give you a little sense of how these things can be planned out. It looks complicated, and oh, heck, yes, it is complicated. But it kind of isn't, because when I said about, can you plot out your processes, this is going to be how we build these AI agents. So this is an example of a news researcher. So we have here the opportunity to build out, remember I said process. So if you're plotting out your process with your little post-it notes, your other services are available, but your little sticky notes, I should say, you're plotting out the processes of how would you collect and research news on a particular topic. If you know that from a sticky notes perspective, because you plotted it out, you can then do click and drag. You can click and drag these various items over from the left-hand side and build that process in here to create your agent. There's a few things, a few little plugins that you have to do. So it is still relatively technical. And I have to admit, even though I'm relatively techie, I've struggled a bit to build one of these by myself, but they do have templates, and it's getting easier and easier. But this thing will become very intuitive and very, very simple very, very soon. So I'm quite excited by seeing this as being a process-driven infill of the stuff that we just simply don't have the time to do. So when Kiran says, we're all busy, we are, I am, you are, I know everybody is. So these kinds of tools are going to be things that will allow us and enable us to do things quite interestingly and differently in the future. And again, this is something we go into sort of much more deeply as to how you would potentially do this actually in our course that we run here at the college. So that was the first one that I wanted to share with you, because for me, that is a really interesting starting point, if you like, for how we will be doing this particular style of kind of process engineering, if you kind of call it that. The next little demo I wanted to share with you, this one takes a little bit longer because there's a little bit more interactivity, and I'm going to invite you to come into something a little bit different, which is coming into the metaverse with me. Now, you don't have to. You can just sit here and watch the shared screen, because I will keep this all on screen for you so that you'll be able to just literally watch as I move around this space. Let me just adjust the setting there. But I'm going to take you into a metaverse gallery and just show you some of the, at a very, very top line level, when we say the metaverse is, when we say virtual reality, a very, very simple, very, very useful, very accessible place that you can go is something called Spatial. Okay, this is where we host actually a number of courses that we do at the college now. If you go to spatial.io, you can see it if I move the thing up here. You can see it in the address bar there. Spatial with a T, spatial.io. You can have a little play. I'm going to put a link in it in just a moment to the chat for the space that I'm about to go into, which is an example of a gallery. It's an example of an AI gallery, which is one that I created actually with my wife, who is a ceramicist, and she was doing her MA last year. And as part of the MA, she had to do a final show. And as part of the final show, we decided, hey, let's differentiate. As you know, having a husband called Neil, you're always going to do. There's always going to be some tech involved in it, even if you're a ceramicist. So I kind of dragged her, not too kicking and screaming, when I demoed kind of what was possible. But we created a metaverse version of her final show. Now, you could argue, well, why would you want to do that? Because if you've got a final show, why don't people just come to it? But my wife has customers who she serves in America, and they weren't going to come across the pond, you know, for her final show. So what we did is we created a version of the space here in Spatial, which was kind of very, very realistically like the space. It was bigger. It is more grand here. She didn't kind of quite have quite this amount of space, but so that she could actually have a private viewing for her customers in America the following evening. So she did two. She had a real world version, and was obviously did the meet and greet and everyone walking around with their Prosecco and looking at all the artwork, etc. And then she did a metaverse version the following evening. And it was incredible to see the reactions of people who thought, I never knew you could do this. So what I'd like to do is just to share actually in the chat, if anybody would fancy coming into this, I can actually share with you in the chat. If you just bear with me just a second, I will pop this into the chat, and you can join me in here as a guest. I'm just going to show you around. You can just sit in here if you like and just watch the demo as I move around the room. But I just wanted to give you really a sense of the kinds of things that you can see. Now, here's a little avatar of me. Here's little Neil here, Neil's avatar, and you can see actually if I turn myself around, you can see that it actually does look a little bit like me. My digital twin, even dressed in the same black top. Can you imagine that? Anyway, here we are in the space, and you can see that it has a number of items. Now, there's a number of things, again, that we go into how you kind of create this sort of a space and the things that you might possibly want to do with a space like this. I can see that there's a number of you actually coming in, look, into the space in real time. So you can see just how quick it is. You haven't got avatars. You haven't actually set this up. This is accessible. And this is what we do here in a space like Spatial, because you can come in with a guest account. There's no real barrier to a metaverse space like this, and you can come in with your digital avatar and you can look around and move around the room. And I just want to show you some of the features in here that are available. Now, obviously, the main one and the really interesting one for me that takes this beyond having a space that is just about taking people to a website or having a brochure or something like that, or even just doing it on a Zoom call, is the 3D nature of it. You can see that in the middle of the room here are a number of the ceramic vessels that Sonia created. And because they're very much organic sort of earth vessels, as they're called, and she actually created almost like a little mini mountain in the actual physical display. And we did a LiDAR scan of that. Sounds complicated. You just need an iPhone to create a LiDAR scan of the physical object, which we then rendered and put into this space. So you can get up close and personal with the actual vessels themselves. And again, because they're in 3D, how much more interesting it is than just seeing them as a poster or as a 2D object on a screen. So it's the 3D element of it. It is the fact that you feel like you're kind of part of an experience, part of a community, and you can obviously move around. So I'm just going to move around some of the items in here. Now, for some reason, I think my connection here is buffered a little bit. That should be a video playing there. But you can see on the wall, you can make it as interactive as you like. Part of this, of course, is the backstory. So for you, it might be some case studies showcasing, some great products or services that you have, and then you can bring people into here. Click on any of these items and you get the close-up of the particular video that's going on. So again, when we talk about immersive experience, it's far more engaging than just a static kind of video that's playing, because you have, as a customer, you have the option to actually come in here and actually control the journey that you like yourself. Of course, there are other sort of things going on. For those of you actually in here, if you have your sound on, there is background sound, background noise. You won't hear it through my feed here because I've got the audio off, but you'll notice that there are kind of sounds in here. So if you have a background soundtrack, or if you have maybe a welcome introduction, if you were doing a product launch in here, for example, or you were showcasing something to some customers, you could obviously have a welcome or introduction, as well as obviously having avatars of your people and your staff here to do the meet and greet. So kind of anything is really possible. And what we've found is that a lot of people actually, when they are experimenting with this kind of a service, is they start to think about how they can then link back and make this very much joined up with maybe products or services that they have on their website, for example. So if we go to this particular item, this particular earth vessel, if you want to get more detail about it, you can obviously tag all of the details about this particular item, and you could click there to view, or you could set that up as to buy. So if you have some kind of e-commerce thing that you want to integrate here, we've had a number of people come on the course saying, I want to create like a store with 3D versions of the objects that people can click on and actually buy. And so it's a very interesting way of actually recreating a physical store. We actually had somebody yesterday who was looking to create their own nightclub. They actually own a series of nightclubs and or a suite of nightclubs and restaurants. And so what they're doing is they're going to create a 3D version or a virtual reality version of one of their nightclubs, and actually do kind of demos and cocktail demonstrations and things like that, actually in the metaverse, as a kind of a precursor to coming to the actual events that they host. So the world is your oyster, and this is what I'm saying about redefining marketing and thinking about things differently. It's just really, really interesting the way that you can start to think about the kind of offering that you have. Now, I'm not saying this is going to replace everything, but if you see a need to differentiate, if you see something where maybe the geographic limitations you have on getting customers, maybe they're overseas customers, much as Sonia has here, who aren't physically going to come to a physical event here in the UK, but you wish to still serve them, maybe something like this could offer up a slightly innovative, slightly more interesting way of doing things. So for me, this is a really interesting kind of experiment that we have kind of going on here. Obviously, on the course, we go into a lot more detail about sort of how you do this stuff. But the very interesting thing, a lot of people often then say, "Yeah, but I can't afford this. You know, we don't actually have budgets for running this." Do you know how much this cost? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There's no cost at all, apart from your time associated with anything that you can see here. And that for me is another game changer. The budget here is not an inhibitor. And also because, as you can see here, and we proved it here, that a number of people came in without even knowing spatial before. And now look at them, they're sat down, they've been traveling around in this space. It's accessible. You can access this on a desktop, which is where I'm demoing this from right here, right now. You can access it from a headset. So if you're a gamer or you have a Meta or Apple Vision Pro, if you can afford such things, if you have a headset, you can access it through that. But the real game changer for me is that it works beautifully as well on a tablet and an iPhone. The actual interactivity is very simple, but it's very, very effective. So again, just answering the question that Kiran raised earlier is is this just hype? No, it's accessible now. We have the technology. We have a lot of reasons why this could be an appropriate thing to do. And differentiation, immersive service, and personalization, for me, are the game changers as we arrive here in this kind of what you might term a perfect storm. Could I ask for a little favor for anybody who is actually in the room here? You probably have also the screen that I've got here. If you like this and if you've enjoyed this very, very quick little whistle-stop tour here, give Sonia a shout out, show her some love, please, and do click on the little like button there. We've started asking people to do that actually when we've been demoing this thing, because if you like it, why not? You'd like it if it was a YouTube video or something else on socials. So yeah, if you would, that would be great. She'd be very, very grateful. She has spent quite a lot of time putting this thing together for us to be able to demo this. So yeah, if you would, that would be wonderful. Thank you. So that's and carry on playing in there. I'll leave you to enjoy that one. But I've got something else for you to have a little look at and a little play with now, which is I want to kind of go on to the final of the three little demos that I wanted to talk about and run through here, because one of the things that I was sort of keen to talk about and kind of work through was the idea of being, I guess, really kind of beyond just purely working with ChatGPT as a content creation tool. So one of the things that I wanted to sort of demonstrate and show here is the idea of using it for creating in the short term, if those complicated AI agents are a little bit too big a step for you right here, right now, is to be actually using ChatGPT as a tool to create some little helpers around you. And this is something that you can do for yourself if you want to sort of start the journey of using GPT kind of in a sort of a bigger, more holistic way. You will need to actually really make this work. You will need to get this working properly. You'll need ChatGPT 4. Okay. So most of us, when we come in and use GPT, we're using GPT 3.5, which is the free version. So that's kind of very much the entry level. I would say, and I'm not incentivized, I promise I'm not incentivized by any of these services at all. This is completely objective. But I would say that GPT-4 and the premium version of GPT for about $20 a month is, apart from my coffee subscription, is my best spending of $20 per month that I actually spend. GPT-4 is a game changer. And the reason it's a game changer is for this little item down here, this little paper clip. Now, if you've already got the pro version of GPT and you're using GPT-4, you will know how valuable this little paper clip is. The little paper clip allows you to append to any of your prompt engineering, and your prompts are the messages and the chats that you have with GPT down here. It allows you to add to those prompts an item or a PDF, or importantly, a spreadsheet of some data. And that data allows you to use GPT to produce some reports. So gone are the days where you have to pore over pages and pages of numbers and data and graphs or Google Analytics outputs that you don't really understand. Let's face it, who does? You can allow now GPT to go and do that for you. Let me show you where you can get that. Because if you've got GPT-4, you can explore GPTs. And GPTs are some custom-built versions of ChatGPT that are specialists in particular things. So these can be specialists and you can see there are a number of different things. These are the trending ones, so the ones that are really quite popular right now. So Canva has created an AI version, a GPT version of Canva, and all the things that we know in terms of assets and marketing materials that you can create in Canva, you can do now within GPT. So you can really personalize and customize using GPT. But the one I want to focus on, and there are many here for images and for videos and for content and for research, but the one I want to focus in on here, just because this is very, very valuable, because this is a bane in most marketers' lives, is actually data analysis. We haven't got the time to do it, but we know we need to, we know we should do it. GPT can help you now to do this. So if you click on Data Analyst, drop in any files and I can help analyze and visualize your data. Oh, you've now got a mini GPT that can help you to do that thing that you probably don't want to be doing. So if I click on Start Chat, what you can do then is you prompt engineer. So you're doing all that kind of detailed description over what you need the report for, how you're going to use it, the kind of data that you might want to highlight to the management team, the things that you've been testing out, what your SMART goals are for the last month. Then you click the little plus, the little paperclip button there. You add in the data, and let's face it, this is an AI, so it's going to be able to do this in a microsecond, whereas you're going to take days to do it. Remember that 80-20? Remember, if you could free up 20% of your time from not doing this, you can free up 20% of your time to improve your processes, build out your agents, etc. This is where your time saving comes from, using the AI to get that 20% of time. And by building your prompt, by getting the prompt very, very detailed and allowing yourself to get into a chat, a conversation. Remember, it's called Chat GPT. The chat is there for a reason. You don't just tell it and expect it to know. You get into a chat with it. This is prompt engineering, by the way, 101. So you get into the chat with it, you explain what you need it for, you explain the things that your maybe your KPIs or the way that the management team like to see the data presented, you load up the data and you press go. And then it will do the magic and it will come back with visuals, it'll come back with a written report. But here's the game changer. If you ask it to come back with a number of recommendations for based on the data, what you would, or what ChatGPT would recommend that you focus on next week to improve your marketing ROI, it will give you the top 3 to 5 to 10 to whatever you describe, things that you can do in priority order because it knows. Now, how long is that going to take you to do that kind of evaluation? Well, if it's me, a heck of a long time. So these are the kinds of ways that we can start to use GPT to do that. Now, if you say, okay, great, but what else can it do? You've now whetted my appetite. Data analysis, great. Are there other things it can do? And well, we're different as an organization. We've got some very specific needs. So what can it do for us? Well, over here, you can actually create your own GPTs. Here's one I created earlier, which is Team Neil Wilkins. This is me. And you can create a little GPT that is one of my GPTs. And this, it's a phrase, it's my GPTs. You go in there and you can create a GPT by telling it and briefing it what you want it to be. Remember those AI agents built on those process maps that we were looking at? This is AI Agent Lite. Okay, so this one is briefed about my website, it's briefed on my podcast, it's briefed on all the things that I want to showcase. And it goes in, it looks at them. I've given it some basic sort of prompts so that if I wanted to sort of understand from people putting into the message here, tell me what the latest AI or metaverse podcasts that you've interviewed people on your podcast for. Tell me the latest 4 that you'd recommend. You could put that in here and it will then come back with a response. So it's kind of a chatbot, it's kind of a customer service thing, it's kind of a filter. But for me, this kind of thing as well is a replacement for a website menu. Because far better to customize the immersive experience on something that, as a visitor, you actually want to see, rather than having to drill deeply into a menu on a website. To me, that's Web 2. This is Web 3, where you're actually giving the control over the experience in a personalized way to the customer who's looking to integrate their day with yours, to engage with you and find out what you do. So we've got data analysis and we've got my GPTs, just 2 of the very, very small selection of reasons why I would say GPT, the premium version, probably is your very, very best next step if that's what you want to do to start building out this kind of a story in your organization. So Kiran, that's what I wanted to share with everybody. Just 3 kind of simple examples there. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Neil. I always learn so much whenever I see you demonstrating and showcasing. We've had some questions in, and I had 1 or 2 questions I wanted to ask you as well. The first one I want to go to is certainly something that would really help me as well, and it follows on from your analytics discussion. Is there a GPT specialist or other AI tool to assist with Google Analytics 4? And I would have to agree with the person that put it forward. The new interface and pulling up specific data is really quite hard in Google Analytics 4, and the documentation isn't always particularly helpful. Is there anything you could suggest?
Well, I think certainly building out a My GPT to do that. Personally, I'm not aware of one that's at the moment specific to GA4, but I would certainly share the pain of GA4 versus Universal Analytics. It is difficult. It is really complicated. I think the thing that that we would generally recommend for that is if you can at least run some reports from GA4 and then put those reports directly into the data analysis in GPT, like I was just demoing there, that'll at least be your start of a 10. I'm not aware at the moment. If anybody is actually using one, do pop the answer into the chat. I'm not aware that there is a Google Analytics specific one that allows particularly marketers to be able to really translate really what are really quite complicated analysis sort of reports in there now. But we'll certainly keep an eye on it, and somebody is bound to be developing it right now. But I think if you wanted the light version, definitely using data analysis in GPT will definitely get you off the mark of that.
Thank you. And the other question we had, which I suspect is going to be quite a bigger discussion, perhaps for both of us, is around ethics, which is always a huge issue with AI. And a lot of the problem with AI is it's still a bit black box technology, so we don't always know what the AI is using when it comes up with suggestions and ideas. But we've had the question is phrased that AI is being deployed in scientific research, which raises the issue of ethics. Are there ethics we should uphold as marketers, as current regulations for marketing and advertising is behind the development of these tools? It's a very interesting area.
It is, and I think this is one that is very, very simple, but it's also very, very complicated. I think certainly my rule of thumb always is, if there are guidelines, if there are regulations, if there's legislation in the real world, all of the above applies here, both in AI, also in metaverse, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no difference really in the way that you should be operating as an organization, irrespective of your industry. The next step, though, is a little bit more complicated, because when you're then maybe using an AI by putting in sensitive information into the AI, what you need to do very quickly is make sure that's ring-fenced. There are certain AI tools, as I understand them, and they're evolving, and there will certainly be certainly tools, out of the GPT family as well, that will be Yeah, very much giving kind of version A and version B. So version A is that kind of large language model, which is kind of really accessing the world and the internet. And then there'll be the kind of the closed model, which is basically just using your data, and it's ring fenced and it's protected. So there will be these different versions, if you like, of these models. And I think it's going to be case by case. It really is. I think certainly being very diligent and being, very mindful of any kind of sort of ethics issues that you face in your industry is, right at the top of the tree here. But I think, as I say that in equal measure, I don't want to be making people fearful of this. I think as long as you're careful with the way that you talk to the AIs, the way that you prompt engineer, and again, this comes back to the whole prompt engineering thing, it's figuring out what is appropriate within your role, within your industry, within your organization. If you don't tell it stuff that's sensitive, it can't work from sensitive stuff. So I think it's about knowing where the boundaries are, just being just diligent and mindful over how you're using it. So there's a lot of things that you're going to be able to do to get some great benefit that aren't sensitive. And I think maybe just beginning there until the rule book is established, there's very little, if any, case law at the moment that says, this organization was sued for doing this or for that. So there's no playbook in how we do it. There's no rule book in terms of the law. We're evolving this, and the fact we're even talking about this now means we're evolving this in real time. So I think tread carefully, but don't be nervous. Tread with things are public facing and they're okay to deal with. Begin there, and then the more sensitive stuff I think can follow when the rule book is written.
I think it's also worth putting out, one of the things I've always loved about the ASA and the CAP, BCAP codes that we have to abide by as marketers is that it actually states very specifically that you have to obey the spirit as well as the letter. So it's not good enough to say, well, the rule book didn't say I couldn't do that, so I did it anyway. If you know that causing offence or releasing information or whatever is wrong. So I think to some extent as marketers, we just have to be confident enough to say, we can be ethical in our day-to-day lives, we can be ethical as marketers, just apply the normal ethics to this. And as you say, Neil, perhaps sometimes you have to think a little bit more carefully about, am I releasing sensitive data? But I hope you would do that in your day-to-day life anyway. Think about if you might cause offence, if you might cause upset, in the same way you would do about any other sort of advertisement or any other communication that you created. So I think sometimes we assume that the analog world or the non-AI world isn't relevant to this world, but of course it is. It's not a Wild West frontier.
Yeah, I quite agree. And I think, this is what I said right at the start, is that there's a great opportunity here for marketers to kind of wake up, really, and just to be very, very conscious of the emerging technology, the challenges and the opportunities, and not coast. I think too many of us have coasted over the last, say, 10 years. I know the world is very different this side of, pandemic and this, that, and the other. And we've got a lot more technology now that's emerged this side of it. But this is such a great opportunity. And I think as long as we're all awake, and I totally agree with you, the spirit of doing this thing right and ethically and sustainably, as well as, sustainability impact on using more technology, because everything's got a carbon footprint. So we've just got to be conscious and mindful of the balance. And I think it's just about being good marketers and good humans. I think as long as we have that as our, doing stuff, from the heart as much as from the head, I think, we'll all be fine.
So following on from that, one of the questions I've been asked before is customer-centric innovation. And are there best practices to ensure that the AI and the metaverse technologies actually enhance the customer experience? I mean, you've given us an example of in spatial, but what else can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to kind of really watching and being mindful, and sort of extends on probably from that previous question, because I think it is going to be a lot about testing. I often get asked the question is, well, where's the ROI for this? Where are we going to be able to prove to my boss that, actually it was worth spending that 20% of my time, because my time's valuable. I think at the moment it's about building it organically, building the evidence that actually this was worth innovating with, it was worth testing. I mean, the lovely thing is we can again use the AI to help us along with this. So A/B testing, as we would always do, split testing, for those of you who kind of know that phrase, comparing before and after, with or without the use of AI and metaverse, is a standard kind of method of doing it. But the lovely thing, of course, now with AI is that we can actually do what's called multivariate testing. So you can change loads of things in one thing, and the AI will figure out what made the difference because it can assess it, because it's way cleverer than we are. So I think that's kind of something that is very much using the AI hand in hand to provide the evidence for using the AI. I think so. It's almost win-win-win. But I think going back to the original point about just plotting out these customer journeys and these processes, I know I sound like a broken record, but to me, that is the theme that I'm seeing from everybody and everywhere. Those who are already getting gains in this area and already, striving forward are the ones who have plotted it out. It is process. To some, that sounds a little bit dry, but it's so powerful. It really, really is.
I mean, I think plotting out your processes is good marketing practice anyway. Speaking as somebody who hates processes and spreadsheets and has been dragged kicking and screaming into making certain that we do this, I can actually, even 6 months later, finally have to admit there is a huge business benefit from doing that, whether you're going could we have some sort of practical steps for starting a small pilot project? Because you've sort of suggested to me that I should find 20% of my time, and I think that's probably a really good idea, or more likely 20% of somebody else's time, I suspect, in my case. Where can I point them to? What are the sort of practical steps for starting a small project?
So yeah, I think probably what I'd do is I'd split the whole kind of, because we've obviously jumped around a little bit, metaverse, new reality, and AI here. So I kind of split them out. So if I start with metaverses first, how about, much as you saw how easy it was there, everybody, and for those of you who went into the into that gallery space, then thank you very much again. You saw how quick and easy it was for that. Why not host your next team meeting in the metaverse? Create a spatial room. They're dead easy to do. Lots of free templates in there. It doesn't cost you anything, and just explore, see how people react, see how people feel. So that would be a very, very practical next step. I think from an AI perspective, again, just following on this whole sort of data theme that we've got, maybe compare a typical monthly report that you normally create with an AI enhanced or AI created one, and then evaluate the difference, evaluate how they are received by the management or the rest of your team, and compare the differences. See if it does go deeper. See if your evaluations before you look and see what AI suggests are different. This kind of before and after, or with or without, is often a really nice way of taking those first few steps, because it's very practical and it's very evidence-based. So I think keep it really, really small scale. I don't necessarily think you're going to be developing a big kind of multi sort of faceted e-commerce store in the metaverse at this stage, but maybe just a little team meeting, just get things started.
Thank you. And can I suggest also that it's very easy for those of us that are sort of out there looking at these new things to think that everybody knows about this. We actually did a team training with my own staff, and my staff will be as typical as anybody else's staff. I don't mean the teaching staff, I mean the admin side. And I actually had a couple of people that said, I've never heard of ChatGPT, what is it? Now, that may be absolutely shocking to those of us that are in this world and are there all the time, but actually real people have real lives that they get on with. You could be extremely good at doing what you do and just never have heard of these things. So it is worth, if you are going to do a staff meeting in Spatio, I think that's a great idea, but you might need to think about perhaps you need to hold the hand of some of the staff before you just say, right, in you go. It can be surprising where staff are, and therefore possibly where your customers are in this understanding of this world. I know that could be hugely.
Yeah, and I'm always really, really fascinated by just once people do click the button, just how intuitively they then find walking around, jumping, dancing, because the dance moves in spatial are fascinating. When you've got a serious meeting, you see people dancing on their chairs. There is obviously that going on too, but very quickly people find themselves immersed. It's something psychological about that process of just getting in there and playing that actually does work very, very quickly. It always surprises me just how quickly the cynics and the skeptics actually do buy into it. So there's an opportunity to play.
Yes, I remember you did this at a tutor conference, didn't you, last year, where you got us all in spatial, and there were tutors definitely shimmying and a lot of dad dancing, which was a bit sad. I will encourage anybody who has any more questions to put them in chat while we're giving people a chance to do that. I'm still in the world of trying to save my time and looking for time management. So are there some effective time management tools and techniques that marketers can use for this, to accommodate all this learning of new technologies?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of go from personal experience, really, of the stuff that's really worked for me. I mean, if you Google, time management for marketers, obviously there's a million results going to come back. But the stuff that works for me is, as I say, it's that 80-20 rule, actually blocking out that 20%, not just saying, yes, I'm going to do it and having the intention, but actually putting it in the diary. So I have meetings with myself to look at this stuff. And I think unless you block it out, it's planned spontaneity, really, because I'm planning it to be kind of in there in the diary, and then I have to protect that time. I think for me as well, making space in a point in the day where there is a little space. So I know there's a lot of people who advocate doing this kind of thing early in the morning before, everybody else gets in, or before the email inbox starts to build. So I always make space first thing to do stuff for me. And I always think a little bit of research and looking at this stuff because I love it. It's really kind of part of my world. So I make space first thing in the morning. Now, for others, that might not be the time, might be lunchtime. It could be, late in the evening or whenever. But I think making space that fits is a really important thing. So that 20% has got to work for you. I can't prescribe when that's going to be. And then I think really kind of filtering out the noise. And I have a number of Twitter lists, or X lists, because it's X now. And I've also got some trusted sort of marketing tech sites and podcasts that I refer to. And I kind of trust them as being almost like the filters. I haven't got time to look through and sift through a whole host of places. So I've got some go-to sort of places that work for me, which I always find sort of really sort of helpful just to kind of keep the noise away, really. So I use Imaginative for AI news, imaginative.com is a really good one. If you're into podcasts, anybody, I would definitely recommend the AI Breakdown as a podcast. That's a really, really good one. They do a daily, or he does a daily briefing. It's only a few minutes, but it just keeps your finger on the pulse if you like this kind of stuff. So that's the AI Breakdown. And then from the metaverse side of things, I look at metaverseinsider.tech, metaverseinsider.tech. And that's a good one. Again, just from a virtual reality or new reality perspective. So I don't spend a huge amount of time doing it, but I've just got those go-to kind of sources, and I've created those Twitter lists or X lists just to kind of watch the industry, really, as well.
Brilliant, thank you. We don't seem to have any more questions. Sally, do you have any questions before we wrap?
I don't have many questions. I just have a lot of notes. I've literally written about 5 pages worth of notes, and I can see in the comments a few people have had to duck out, and similarly they've got same as me, lots of ideas to try. So no questions. The ethics one was the one for me, but obviously that was covered earlier. But and I haven't actually gone into the metaverse. That one's more new on me, obviously, much more sort of been investigating the AI things, but that metaverse just blew my mind. And the fact that Neil highlighted that the cost is, minimal for that, and just the opportunities with that one has just pretty much blown me away. So maybe something that us Cambridge Network folk might have to give a go. I've just got so many notes. But yeah, the one that Neil said about is just that making the time, the 80-20 rule. I'm the worst one for it. I have my to-do list because I went on a time management course and always have my to-do list, but just making sure to block out that time. I think as marketers, I think we need to do that, and I think we're not that good at it. So that's definitely something I've learned today, that I need to just block out the time to explore. Definitely.
Thank you, Sally. If you fancy exploring further, and with Neil as your expert guide, the college actually runs a monthly AI short course. I've just put the link into the chat. Neil, would you like to sort of briefly cover off what you do in that short course?
Well, we call it a short course, but it's an immersive course because we jump around AI, We do obviously metaverse, we do 3D objects, we do holograms even. I'm not going to even go there today, but holograms in marketing is now a thing. That's for another day. And one of the key things is we very much hold your hand irrespective of where you are in the journey. So we had yesterday, we actually ran the April day, and we had people who were there literally much as a number of you obviously on this this session are. It's brand new. It's just completely new. You've heard the terms or some of them, but you don't really know what the thing looks like. So we have people on the course with that. But we actually had two people very, very experienced, and they themselves were sharing lots of the tools that they're using and some of their experiences, having got a little bit deeper into their journey. So it's a really fascinating way of doing it. But we actually run the day on a mix between Zoom so that we can showcase some of the AI tools, but actually mostly it's in the metaverse there in spatial, because we find that as we go through the day, we're moving around the particular training room that we have, and there's loads of resources in there that we can use to have conversations and demos. So very interactive. You end up the day with, much as Sally said, lots of notes. There's just so many different things, but we help you as well to kind of filter it down, sort of in terms of what your priorities are going to be for the next steps. So yeah, if you fancy a very different, very interesting, and very hot off the press day, because we have to change it every single time we do it, then yeah, please do join us and follow the link to find out more.